Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar on how to start strong in a recession presented by the Dallas Association of Young Lawyers. My name is Sabah Syed. I'm an attorney at Bell Nunnally and one of the program organizers. Should you have any questions during today's program, feel free to use the Q&A function located at the bottom of your screen in the middle. We have a great panel today. It will provide you with some tips to stay resilient during the economic downturn. Each member of our panel was licensed between 2008 and 2010. This time frame was considered the beginning of the longest economic decline since the Great Depression in the 1930s. The economic downturn was dubbed the Great Recession the years after. The Great Recession devastated world financial markets, caused millions of people to lose their life savings, their jobs, and their homes. At the height of the Great Recession, about 10% of Americans were unemployed. Shifting gears to today, COVID has impacted the global economy at an unprecedented level. As of April 2020, the US unemployment rate was 14.7%. No one is sure what the long-term impact of COVID will be. The Great Recession was due to the collapse of our banking system. This recession is due to a pandemic that we are still trying to understand. So we know that trials, internships, jobs, and mentoring are all different in this era. We understand that and hope that the experiences of our panel during the last downturn, although different in certain respects, will be beneficial for your current situation. And with that, I will turn it over to our moderator, Justin Gobert, who will introduce our panel and get things started. Justin is a 2009 SMU law grad and is the current president of DAYL. Justin?
Thank you so much. And really thank you so much for your work in planning today's event. Sabah did really kind of all the behind the scenes work that made today's event come together. So a huge thank you to you for all that you did. As Sabah was kind of reading through some of the statistics or facts from 2009, 2008-2009 timeframe, it really brought back to me how challenging that time was for my classmates and for myself. But I would say for me personally, the economic downturn was the absolute best thing that could have ever happened to me in my career, as counterintuitive as that sounds. I guess there's a little bit of backstory. I graduated in 2009, as Sabah said, and had a job lined up post-graduation, which in hindsight was not a job or a firm I was super excited to work for, or work I was super excited to do. But actually, while studying for the bar exam, that opportunity fell through. So I took the bar exam, didn't know exactly what I was going to be doing. And a week after the bar exam ended, I got a call from an attorney that I had a connection with. Actually met her because she lost her job in 2008 from the downturn, and went to work briefly doing alumni relations work. And I was working at SMU doing admissions work as a student, and built a connection with her. She called me up. She was now working at an oil and gas company, and said, "Hey, we have this legal internship. I know you already took the bar exam, but would you be interested in an internship?" And jumped on the opportunity. They told me at the time that it would never turn into an attorney position because they weren't going to hire somebody right out of law school, but stuck through it and ended up getting hired on there and worked in that position for about 6.5 years. And that started my now 10+ year in-house career. So the economic downturn led me to meeting somebody that I probably would have otherwise never met, led to me losing a job that I really didn't want, and led to me getting a job that set me on the career path that has made me really happy and been really fulfilling. And so I think, I hope one of the takeaways from today's event is that even though these times are uncertain and create challenges, that hopefully there's some new opportunities that are created out of this. And we have a great panel today that kind of will talk to you about their experiences as well and how they persevered through that time. I want to go through and introduce each one of them, and then we'll go around and hear from them about their experiences during the 2008 to 2010 timeframe. Our first panelist is Matt Acosta. Matt is a partner at Platt Chima Richmond. He graduated from Baylor in 2008. We have Chelsea Hilliard, senior counsel at Foley and Lardner. She graduated from SMU in 2010. We have Christy Merchant. Christy has her own firm, Merchant Law Office. She graduated from Tulsa in 2009. And our final panelist is Bill Richmond, managing partner at Platt Chima Richmond. and Bill was a classmate of mine at SMU, graduating in 2009. Bill, we ended with you, so let's go ahead and start with you. Why don't you tell us about what your first job was out of law school, how you got it, and how you ended up where you are currently?
So my first job out of law school was at Sedgwick, Dieter, Moran & Arnold, which was a global litigation firm. I was in their 30-person Dallas office. I had gotten that job through OCI and chose that firm because of its litigation focus and my own particular interests, and was the only summer clerk in the 4 offices in the Central Time Zone. So we were kind of right at the start of the downturn, and they made a significant and drastic change to their summer program, which became even more drastic in the next years after that. So got that job, ended up coming back and starting there as a first-year attorney, and now, as you mentioned, managing partner of my own firm. I had gone to a boutique, which is actually where I had the opportunity to work with Chelsea for a number of years at Gruber Hurst. Neither of those firms are around anymore, actually. So Sedgwick closed its doors a couple of years ago, as did Gruber Hurst. And so now I've got a firm, one of my partners here today, Matt, but started the firm with 2 of my law school friends 5 years ago. So it'll be 5 years in July. We have 13 attorneys now.
Christy?
Hi. So I got my first job as a prosecutor approximately 6 months after taking the bar exam. My prosecutor position was in East Texas. I hit the ground running trying to find a job after I took the bar exam. I started in Dallas. That didn't work, so I continued to move east, and ultimately I was able to convince a secretary to take my resume and listen to me and give my resume to the district attorney who was actually looking for a job, or for looking to hire someone for really 2 positions. And we had our interview, and I convinced him I can do both of them together, so you don't need to hire 2 people, just hire me. And so that's how I ended up getting my first job as a prosecutor at a small town county in East Texas. After a couple of years doing that, I left that district attorney's office and worked at the Court of Appeals in Tyler as a staff attorney. And ultimately, I wound up back in Dallas, and I worked for a smaller firm and then opened up my own firm. And now that first job of being a criminal prosecutor has allowed me to represent people in criminal appeals and in criminal habeas corpus matters. So that's how I got to where I am. And I think, Chelsea, you're next.
Chelsea.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Hilliard. I went through the OCI process as a 2L and had a summer associateship lined up with a big firm, and this was, I guess, in summer of 2009, and lost that associateship about 2 weeks before it was supposed to start. And similar to Justin, I had no idea at the time, but the way that opened up new opportunities that I really hadn't thought about previously, but just to kind of skip ahead. Well, that summer I ended up working, I split my time between a mass tort asbestos firm doing litigation work and a small 3 to 5 attorney firm helping with commercial litigation matters. Participated in OCI as a 3L in the fall, and was able to secure a job with Saba's firm, Bell, Nunnally & Martin. Worked there, then joined Gruber Hurst, as Bill mentioned, and now I'm at Foley & Lardner doing securities and commercial litigation. And Matt?
Yeah, so actually, I had a federal clerkship out in Tyler, Texas, as my first salaried job, but actually my first legal work was a day after I was licensed. I was doing a little bit of contract work, but I took my first 2 cases the day after I was licensed. My buddies weren't getting paid as contractors in a marketing firm. And they had told me, hey, we need to get paid. We have a breach of contract case. I said, well, I'm not a licensed attorney. I can't represent you, but give me about 3 days and I can. And so I finally got that email, and they signed me up. I sent a demand letter the next day. Fortunately, before the clerkship started, I was able to get rid of the case, because I don't know what I'd do if I couldn't have gotten rid of that case before I started the clerkship. But about 2 weeks after I started, the market dropped out. I didn't have a job after the clerkship whatsoever lined up. The judge's rule was you couldn't look for a job until January, February of the next year. So we all had to go beg him to start looking for a job immediately. And it was until March of the next year until I got my first interview. Probably emailed about 40 firms between then. Went through every single connection I could possibly get just to start getting those interviews. Finally, I landed at Jackson Walker, doing mostly intellectual property litigation, because that's what the judge was doing over in East Texas at the time. And then 10 years later, decided to make the jump and go over and practice with my good friend Bill, be a little bit entrepreneurial, and expand my practice a little bit, and been loving it ever since. Been there at Platt Chima Richmond for 6 months, so that's where I've been.
Great. Bill, we'll come back to you, and then Christy, I'd like you to weigh in on this too. What would you say was the best thing that you did for yourself, either in law school or the early stages of your career, that really set you up for the success that you've had?
I would say there's a lot of different things that go into it, and obviously a lot of different paths. I would have to say that whatever certainty one feels about kind of what their path may be in the law, it's good to hold that and to work towards those. It can certainly be derailing to not have an idea of what you want to do. But for someone to say they 100% know what they want to do, and if they know that now, that they're going to know it in 5 years or 10 years, isn't really, just shows that they don't know how the legal profession works. Because I don't think any of us would have said this is where we were going to be at this very moment. And I don't know any lawyer. I know lawyers who were at firms who thought they were going to leave, and they ended up staying their entire careers there, now 11 years in. So in terms of the best thing towards that end is thinking outside the box in terms of being able to be connected and to sow seeds, right? So really what that comes down to is building relationships with the people who are going to be in this profession in one way or the other. And that started all the way back in the first year of law school. So I'm not from Texas. I'm originally from Missouri. And when I came to SMU, had made a decision that I wanted to come here, I literally didn't know anyone. And in the few weeks leading up to orientation, the only place I went was IKEA. And then I would go home, and that was it. And I would drive around and try and learn this city that was 10 times larger than the city I had come from. And then I started school, and some of the folks that I met on the very first day of orientation ultimately became my law partners or clients or just friends or folks that I helped get jobs or that helped me get a job. And so keeping that in mind day in and day out, especially as things get hard, is where you're going to see that develop later down the road. And I don't just mean in jobs or business, but I mean even just the kind of fulfilling connection that you can have with someone who's in your profession and knows what it's like to have gone through these trials and come out on the other end, and all, wherever that may be and whenever that may be. So it's the concrete tips would be, I'll give you one example. First year of law school, you've got to focus on law school. I know we have a lot of different folks here from all the years. But I took some time with my friend then, who again became my law partner 10 years later, to go to the BELO and go to a Dallas Asian American Bar Association event. And those folks assumed that we were young lawyers. And to this day, they still are confused as to that we weren't lawyers when we were actually first years. And in their mind, we were older than everyone else and more experienced than everyone else because people didn't do that kind of thing. And so now in this moment, I know people can't necessarily go to events, but you can still show up to Zooms. You can still volunteer to help with things. Keep, of course, in mind your obligations at work or at school, and of course your family, but thinking outside of the box and not necessarily following those rules about how you establish relationships and who you establish relationships with will allow you to achieve non-ordinary gains, or said another way, extraordinary gains.
Yeah, Bill, I totally echo, being 2009 graduates together. I think we both remember folks from our class that didn't, treat each other, respectfully during what was a very kind of stressful and competitive time. And I think we'll probably remember that for the rest of our career. Christy, same question to you. What do you think was the best thing that you did to set yourself up for success early, either in law school or early in your career?
Well, the first thing that I did, we'll start with law school. Obviously, I studied hard just like everybody else did. And my main goal was to get on some kind of journal. Our law school had 3. And I decided I wanted to be on the most popular law journal that was at our school, which was the Energy Law Journal. And so as a 2L, I qualified to get on that Energy Law Journal and worked super hard while I was on that law journal, because I wanted to have an editor's position as a 3L. And so when the 3rd year came up, I ended up getting an articles editor position for the, I can't even remember what the name of it's called anymore, but it was basically a year in review type publication that the ABA puts on. And so that's what I did. And that was so helpful for me, because it made you read, it made you edit other people's work, and it forced you to learn the Blue Book backwards and forwards. And so now I do a lot of appellate work. I rarely look up how to cite a case or any other kind of citation. I'll still go back every now and then to do it, but for the most part, I don't ever have to even look at those. And that was over 10 years ago that we were doing that. As far as the early stages of the career, I'm going to have to echo what Bill said about, building relationships. I didn't know hardly anyone when I became a lawyer. I came from out of state, from Oklahoma. I grew up in a small county. My parents weren't lawyers. They didn't have any connections. And so everything that I did, I had excellent references from law school, and I did have a judicial internship for a summer here when I was a 1L in Dallas. But other than that, I didn't really have anybody that I could latch onto as a local. And one of the best things that I did when I was a prosecutor is I made friends with the defense bar, like making friends with the enemy, right? And so they were my best friends. And fast forward, 10 years later, I've worked with and won murder appeals with some of those defense attorneys while we've been working together. And had I been ugly or nasty to the defense bar when I was a prosecutor, there's no way I would have the strong relationships that I have now with my now colleagues on the same side of the V.
Great, thank you. And I would also encourage attendees, as was mentioned at the beginning, we're open and would love questions from you as well. So feel free to submit those throughout the presentation. We'll try and get to some of those questions. Chelsea, I'm going to turn to you. Talk about networking, and I think there's a lot of different definitions of networking. But was there a networking connection that you made in law school or right at the beginning of your career that was particularly helpful to you? And can you describe that connection? And if so, how you made it as well?
So it sounds like we're all in the same boat. I didn't realize this, but I moved to Texas for undergrad I went to SMU, and then I stuck around for law school. But even though I had gone to SMU as an undergrad, I I didn't really have an established network in the legal field. And what I would say about networking is one of these terms that I think gets thrown around a lot, and sort of you almost freeze up because you're like, it must be so formal, it must be in this environment of, a happy hour or something, or it must be through this organization or that organization. And what I will say is that it is more about making connections, as Bill was commenting on, and developing relationships. I would say everyone in your life, I mean this seriously, everyone everyone you come into contact with is a network. It's part of your network. You don't know who will send you business in your career. And it's more than just who will send you business. It's more than who will give you a job. It's developing meaningful, long-lasting relationships with people that have shared values or shared interests. What I would say as a recommendation for as you're approaching networking right now is it's not going to be 1, 2, 3. It's more like the butterfly effect. It's about getting out there, letting people know, this is what I'm looking for. I need help. I'm looking for X, Y, and Z. Do you know anyone? Can you help me? I mean, as my mom always told me, ask for the order. And I think that's that's certainly true now. Anytime you're dealing with a situation like we are now, where jobs are maybe scarce, you have to be very clear about what you're asking for and what you need and how people can help you, because people want to help. I mean, we're here because we want to help. And one other point on this networking, it's not just about you. Help your friends. Do something. If you find an opportunity and you're like, oh my gosh, this job sounds great, it's just not what I want to do, and I know for sure this is not what I want to do. Like for me, it would be tax law, just not my bailiwick. Great for other people, just not my thing. Challenge yourself. Who in your law class or who in your world of lawyers is looking for a job and that would be a perfect fit for them? Make that introduction. Provide them that opportunity. I can't stress this enough. The way that you get through tough times is by helping each other. You have a wider community than you probably can't even imagine how wide your community is right now. And one of the best ways to help yourself is to help others.
Great. Matt, did you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I'll just echo the background. I grew up in San Antonio. I think my parents had 2 friends my entire childhood. And so I didn't really hear the word networking until I was like a 4th-year lawyer. I didn't really understand what it meant. I didn't even want to come to Dallas. I really wanted to go back to Austin. And because of the recession, I just ended up in Dallas. I thought I'd spend some time here and then ultimately go back to Austin. Well, I fell in love with Dallas. And so here I am. But as far as networking goes, once I learned what it was, I realized that I see myself now, and I think all lawyers really should see themselves as facilitators of everything, of connecting one person to another person for whatever they want or for whatever they need to add value to their lives. So if you know somebody who needs like a small, on the cheap marketer, and you happen to know another friend who is starting up a marketing business, right? Well, those are 2 people you can connect to each other. If you know somebody who's really dissatisfied with their job and really has a talent for style, and they're really looking to open up a business, and all these other people who might help them with that, well, you should connect them, even if they're not even looking for those kinds of people. I mean, you should always be looking for ways to help people. And I think everybody wants to do that, but it's a matter of actually taking action on it and feeling that that is your responsibility, that that's your job, and you know, throwing yourself personally at it too. So not only is it something that is your job, but also something that personally makes you feel good. And once those are combined together, I think that you'll really be successful in your career, and you'll be a great networker, because people will see you as a friend, B, a good person, and see someone that they want to work with, not only on a personal level, but also on a business level, because you've facilitated them and helped work them up personally and financially and on a business level. And to me, that's what networking is.
Great, thanks, Matt. Christy, I'm going to come to you. We heard of kind of at the beginning, Saba laid out some of the kind of statistics from that time period, and really laid out, you know, that it was a bit of a challenging time for people that were graduating law school. How do you think that those challenges really helped to shape your career as you have it today?
Well, I think the first challenge that helped me in my career is, you know, when I started, I was getting paid baby lawyer salary at a very small county. And so, number one, it taught me how to live on a budget without a whole lot of money. And that, obviously, I've made more money since then, but particularly in light of the coronavirus pandemic, I mean, that as a small business owner, you do want to keep your overhead low. And part of the skills that I had from back when I was a baby lawyer, baby prosecutor, making at $45,000 a year, and it was great. I loved it, and I had insurance, which was always the number one thing. Was I could still save money after that, and when the day was over with, and so it emphasized how important it was to make sure you don't spend beyond your means, and that has just been something that I've applied towards not just personal life, but also for running a business and keeping the overhead low, so we can actually turn a profit and make some money.
Great. And we're starting to get some questions come in, and one of them is kind of on the networking point, so I want to kind of jump back over to that. And if there's anybody that would like to volunteer response on this, but the question came in from Lauren Johnson. It said, how do you recommend keeping up with people in your network? As an example, after I finish up summer internship, how do I keep in touch with attorneys I work with, especially if I'm interested in their field? Send them quarterly emails to check in, or do they receive enough email as it is? Send a handwritten thank you note, connect over LinkedIn. Chelsea,
Yep.
You want to take that one?
Love this question because it's a question I asked a number of times when I was in law school and when I was out of law school. So I think communication styles vary by person. You have to find what works for you. I'll kind of tell you what I do and some things that I've tried that may not have worked for me. One recommendation that I received early on in my career was to literally create a spreadsheet, which to me at the time sounded, I don't know, it sounded not personal enough or too formal, but I've actually come around to it simply because when you start to get really busy, it's hard to keep track of everything. And an Excel spreadsheet is actually kind of an easy way, because you can also kind of, like, what I'll do is I'll put a column of, you can categorize it however you'd like, but folks that I want to make sure that I'm checking in on, and sometimes the days blend together, and it's not because I'm not thinking of you, it's just I don't realize that it's been 3 months since our last lunch or a check-in. And I have a great friend from Bell Nunnally, Ross Williams, who is wonderful about, he'll literally put it on our calendar and say, hey, it's time for our quarterly check-in. And I have to tell you, I love that, because it's not that I don't want to check in with him. It's I just, again, don't realize it's been 3 months. I think, especially as younger lawyers, when you're developing the relationships, it's less of the timely kind of check-in reminder when things get too busy. I think you're really trying to establish relationships. And when you're establishing relationships, it needs to be more personal. And this is just my gut feel on this. I don't have any data to support it other than I feel like when you just met someone, you need more frequent, more contact. If I'm trying to get to know someone, I'm going to reach out more frequently. I'll want to do a one-on-one, a lunch or something. And I love a handwritten note. I've sent some postcards during the pandemic to some friends of mine just to say, I saw this and it made me think of you. And I think we all, need a little personal reminder from time to time. And so at the end of the day, what I would say is it's personal, it's up to you, it's however you communicate, how you like to communicate. I will say email, especially if you're reaching out. I mean, email is professional, but most attorneys get bombarded by emails every single day. I feel overwhelmed by my email inbox most days. So if I get an email, even if I want to respond to it, sometimes it's just, it stresses you out because it's one more email to respond to. If I get a letter or someone picks up the phone and calls me, whatever especially if you're talking about someone that is really busy, think about what's the least amount of work for them to schedule something, whether it's a Zoom meeting or a call. Try and make it easy for them. Use apps like Calendly or whatever it is. Just think with that in mind. Think about what your objective is. If it's to get a meeting scheduled, try and make that easy. If it's to connect with someone, try and make it personal.
Great, Chelsea. Yeah, I would, the handwritten notes to me are really something I love keeping them. The emails are nice too, but I still have handwritten notes that some of my interns wrote me over the years, and it's just something you can save, and that tangible thing I think just makes an extra impact. So, Bill, did you want to jump in on that too?
I echo all of what Chelsea said, that making it easy for a busy attorney to connect with you and provide you bits of mentorship. You don't need an hour with them or even 30 minutes, but what you can do is even in this time, some folks are willing to meet at a park or, meet somewhere public or a coffee shop and sit outside or that kind of thing. But even in better times, what I would say is find a place that's convenient. And when you email them, don't email them with, hey, could we meet maybe sometime at some point to maybe talk about something? Just, hey, here are a couple slots that are open for me. If I could get 10 or 15 minutes to talk about XYZ, I want to ask some questions. That tends to get a easier response, because then we have to spend less time thinking about, okay, when is it? Can we not? Just kind of figuring out that back and forth. And then if you're doing it somewhere that's near them, right? If it's near their office or near their home, don't go asking for addresses, but just say, hey, I'm in this area. What's a convenient place near you? Or, more than happy to meet to a spot that's near you, or grab a coffee, meet you at a park or something like that. But be creative, be cognizant that it's going to be an in and an out, as opposed to probably a hour-long jazz session, waxing philosophically about the law. But if you respect that and realize that some people are just not interested, they just don't do it. You'll meet them at an event and they will want to talk to you. And they'll talk to you for 20 minutes, but they're just not into responding to emails because they've got to focus on running their business or something else. Whereas other people are not like that. I'm frequently messaging folks on a variety of platforms. So just because you have a miss in one moment, that's okay. That's why you spread your seeds wide and build relationships everywhere you go.
And Bill, I'm going to go ahead and Emma, stay with you here on the next question. Say from knowing you for 10 years, you're one of the more positive people I know in the legal profession, and I always kind of feel uplifted every time I get an opportunity to visit with you. But thinking back to the challenges that we were facing, at that time, and the students now are facing, having summer programs canceled, graduates are having uncertainty about bar exam. How do you recommend that they stay positive, and how did you stay positive during that time frame?
A phrase that I didn't really know at the time, but I felt it, and that was finally someone put the words to it later once I was actually an attorney, and I thought, that's what I was feeling back then. That's what kept me going. Was the idea and the knowledge that there's always room for good lawyers. No matter, and that came to me in a meeting of bar leaders. At the time, I was president of the Dallas Asian American Bar Association, and we had met with other bar leaders to talk with Dean Ferguson about opening the UNT Law School and whether the community would be supportive. And the question was, do we need another law school? And a variety of different reasons about why it's a unique educational system and how the different market and that kind of thing. But ultimately, what it comes down to is there is always room for good lawyers. And good lawyers means those who are connected, those who are helpful, those who are good counselors, and at a base level, those who are good at their job. And so while there was lots of uncertainty, even I literally got a call that was like, hey, there's a possibility your offer will be rescinded because we're no longer hiring first years. And ultimately, it did work out. But there was a couple of months where I was actively looking for an alternative while getting ready to finish law school and then start bar exam. And so it's in those moments when you have to stay connected to your folks and know that we're all in this together. You're going to be working with these people in one capacity or another for the next 10, 20, or 30 years. And that's regardless of whether you stay in the law or not. Justin and I have a classmate who stopped practicing law. Maybe, actually, I don't even know if he ever practiced law, but now owns his own business and has been running for elected office. And I have no doubt that he will reach an elected office sooner rather than later and go big in that sense. And so you never know where that's going to go, and you want to stay connected with those folks. Know that even though you may have this small experience and small world of experience where you are right now, if you have mentors and folks that are beyond just the uncertainty and the wildness and the craziness that is law school, even in a good market, right? Even you talk to people who were in a bull market of coming out of law school, there were still assholes, people who didn't care about you, people who only wanted what was best for them, and the people you're not going to remember, or at least not remember in a good way, in a long time. Whereas I know when I was a 9th year attorney, so I'm not, I guess, an 11th year or whatever that is, but that year, one of a person that I studied for the bar exam with, who was same year grad as me, became the GC of a Fortune 100 company. And another person from my year became a judge, and a district court judge in Texas in a major county. And so those things are happening and those things are out there. So you don't know where it's going to be. And these are all people who graduated and came out during tumultuous economic times. So stay focused on the long term, stay connected to your folks, reach out to them, and you'll be able to stay positive and just keep taking action. One foot in the direction, it's going to get you where you want to go, whether it's today, tomorrow, next month, or next year.
Yeah, and Chelsea, do you have any advice on staying positive?
I do, and this is something I can't tell you how much I've thought about recently. So one of the reasons I feel like this discussion is so important right now is because I wish there had been this kind of a discussion when I was going through, losing the summer clerkship and trying to go through OCI when all the law firms pulled out, and then just trying to figure out, okay, how can I make this all work? And I would approach it mentally differently than I did. At the time, I felt alone, I felt isolated, and what got me through, honestly, were a couple of, personal characteristics or personality traits, which is grit, drive, and frankly, necessity. So, when I say I got out there, I'll put it that way. I tackled finding a job, finding a replacement job my 2L summer, like it was studying for the bar exam. And I had just found out that the bar exam had been moved up by 3 months. And it was, I was like, okay, well, now the bar exam starts in 2 weeks. And there's no, can I do this? It's, I must do this. I will do this. And I'm going to do this. So let's get cracking. And I'm serious. That mentality is what got me through it. Now, I would approach it differently this time around if I were in the same situation. And what I would say to all of you is you have a community of people who care, who want to help. And it's not just people that are 10 years out, 12 years out, 20 years out. Your peers want to help. You want to help your peers. Talk to each other, be vulnerable. Positivity, is one of those things that I think it's an outgrowth of thinking about things the right way, more than it is about saying, okay, I'm going to be positive. If you're focusing on helping others, if you're focusing on doing the right thing, if your actions are being led by your values and your principles, you'll get through this, and you'll get through it in the right way. Help one another. And two other points. One, if you lose a job, if you lose a summer associateship or an internship, whatever, know that this is not a reflection of your worth. This is not a comment on how good of a lawyer you are or are going to be. It's not a comment on something that you've done wrong. You are stronger than you know, and you can do this. And I know that sounds sort of hokey maybe, but it's true. And I think we all need a reminder sometimes that we put so much pressure on ourselves, and you have to sort of take a step back and remember that this is an economic situation, not a personal situation, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. We've been getting a lot of great questions coming in from attendees, so I want to turn to a few of those. I think a very practical question here. How do you recommend addressing gaps in your resume due to COVID?
Justin, if I could just comment on that real quickly, because I meant to address that in my in your question about positivity. I think you've got to do something. If I'm looking at a stack of resumes and someone says, this is just sort of tough love. If I'm looking at a stack of resumes and someone's got a gap and they're like, well, COVID. To me, I'm going to say, okay, that's not enough. So because 20 other people have said, okay, they had the same situation, and what did they do? It's about looking at opportunity differently. I mean, I may have thought that working at a big law firm was how I defined success. And then all of a sudden, okay, I don't have that opportunity anymore. So I'm going to look at, small firms. You've just got to be out there doing something that develops your skills, shows that you're hustling, right? That helps you progress along your career.
Great. And this, I think this is a $1 million question. So if anybody has an idea on this, but how do you make an impression in this kind of era of virtual meetings and Zoom? And we hope it's temporary, but I imagine that large gathering, large happy hours are something that probably won't be happening for a while. So does anybody have any advice on how you can make an impression virtually?
Well, I think just you've got to be assertive without being aggressive. And that's just it. So you don't filter it, you don't filter out into the background, but at the same time, like I said earlier, you're adding some value because, people, let's just say at the start of COVID-19, you go on LinkedIn and you see 1 billion webinars about pretty much the same topics over and over and over and over again. And about a week into it, an in-house friend of mine, I see a LinkedIn post that says, I hate webinars. I can't stand them anymore. Why do I keep seeing webinars? Why do lawyers keep emailing me about webinars? Well, there's some good content. He doesn't actually mean that. Emailing him personally, he's like, well, I like webinars, but I want them to be on content that is different than all the other webinars that I'm seeing. So you need to find something that's going to be a little bit different, that's going to be attuned to something that people want to learn. And that's the same whether it's going to be online, whether it's going to be in person. And so just standing out from the crowd, but not being particularly aggressive and overbearing to people. And so that's just my 2 cents. Also not trying to be aggressive.
If I could jump in real quick with a couple, I think to dovetail with the last 2 answers. So if you have a gap, if you are no longer in a position and you have a gap because of COVID, you're going to have to explain at one time or another, what in the F were you doing during that time, other than looking for a job. And so if that means you're a litigator and you went and you were like, I read O'Connor's cover to cover. I took a chapter, I took 10 pages a day, I read it every day. Or I read this many articles, or I looked in this issue, or I did these CLEs, or I did whatever it may be. There's a ton of free resources out there. You could even keep.
Oh, Bill, I think you may have frozen, but I'll also add one other point, which is you can always volunteer. There are so many volunteer opportunities through the DAYL, the Dallas Bar Association, the DWLA, whatever organization you're interested in being a participant in. There are a lot of ways that you can hone your legal skills and help others. And Bill, maybe you want to wrap up what you were saying.
Am I back? Yeah.
You're back.
Perfect. So volunteering is a perfect example. Thank you for that, Chelsea. But you've got to be doing something. And if you are demonstrating that you're doing something during that time, one of those things is logging into the various webinars that are being held by bar sections. And that doesn't have to be just in Dallas. Go to Austin, look at what they're doing, look at the State Bar, look at Houston. Any of those different places may be an opportunity to connect with someone, and you need to sow your seeds of building relationships and showing value. And so you can email someone and say, hey, I'd love to be able to help in this area of law. I'm really interested in labor and employment. So for example, I'm on the Dallas Bar Association Board of Directors, and my area that I'm responsible for is helping the labor and employment section. So if someone is interested in labor and employment, be glad to connect them with that section to see how they could, use folks to be helpful, either writing emails or doing blurbs or connecting folks. All of those are different ways to connect and get above the rest of the crowd.
And I'm going to try and combine a couple of these questions. I think they're can be hopefully combined. There's been a lot of discussion about kind of building mentor relationships, and so the question was, what is the best way to go about finding someone with whom to foster a mentor relationship? And there was also a question about particularly building relationships if you're in an area of law where maybe there's not a lot of attorneys that you may interact with in that area. So I think they gave IP as an example. So anybody have advice on actually develop a mentor relationship? Christy, looks like you have your hand up there before.
So I think when it comes to getting a mentor and developing that mentorship with whatever attorney you end up really connecting with, I think if you don't know anyone, there's not going to be any harm in just reaching out. And I mean, yes, lawyers don't want to be bombarded with a bunch of emails or anything like that, but if you're looking and you're interested in something that attorney is doing, reach out to them through LinkedIn, or if you know someone who knows them, and have them reach out to the lawyer and let the lawyer kind of know, and maybe that person can kind of field, how that lawyer is feeling about whether or not they're even interested in talking to a young lawyer or whatever. I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, I haven't actually met an attorney who doesn't want to help mentor a younger lawyer. And so or even a law student. So I think you just got to ask, and even if they're a complete stranger, find out what it is that that particular lawyer is doing, why you want that person, why do I want this lawyer to be my mentor? What do I want to learn from this person? And reach out through a LinkedIn message and say, hey lawyer, I think it's really neat that you practice XYZ law, and this is something that I'm interested in, and I'd really love to learn more about it. And would it ever be possible for me to maybe meet you in person or something like that? And, I know the pandemic is keeping us from having more in-person meetings, but we are not in shelter in place anymore. So people can go out and actually meet people. And so reach out to them and just ask. I mean, even if you get turned down, you're going to improve your communication skills that much more. Learning how to be rejected is part of this whole area. And I think everyone on this panel knows what it feels like to be rejected in all kinds of manners. And this just builds you. So that would be my 2 cents on the building the getting a mentor. And I think Matt had something that he wanted to add to that.
No, I think you covered it. And also Dallas has a million organizations for young lawyers that'll connect you to older lawyers that would just be happy to mentor you. And that's why they're part of the organization specifically. So DAYL has a lot of programs. Dallas Bar Association has a lot of programs. And there's numerous others. So yeah, just get involved and you'll certainly find someone through those organizations. So if you look and you join and you're active, then you will absolutely find someone who's willing to mentor you, and you'll just run into them in the hallway without very much effort on your part, besides just being active in the organization.
Yeah, I think, Christy, I think you had a great point on that. Lawyers are busy, and we know that, but I don't think we should underestimate how much lawyers enjoy talking about themselves and what we do. And if there's an area of law that you're really interested in that there's not a ton of folks that practice, I think that it is a good idea to do that. Reach out and just ask them about what practicing law in that area is like. And I think you'd be surprised that, or maybe not be surprised, how responsive a lot of folks will be to have the opportunity to talk about what it is that they do. We're coming up here on the end of the hour, and so I want to kind of end by going around and letting everybody talk about concrete steps or takeaways that you would give to the law students and recent graduates to help build their career during this challenging and really unprecedented time. And Matt, we'll start with you on that.
Well, first of all, I would make sure to go on to social media like LinkedIn and develop a presence. Make sure that you've filled out your profile. Make sure that you've accounted for basically everyone in your network and you are connecting with them. Actually go and you read your feed and learn the content and try and add your own content. And this applies whether you're a law student or you are a practicing young lawyer, because that's part of your network, that's part of your networking, and you'll learn things, and also you'll certainly provide some wisdom out there into the feed and into the universe. And then second, in the real life, develop your network too. Make sure that you're doing what Christy said, trying to set up those personal contacts. And what I didn't get an opportunity to say now that I really like doing is try I like always to try to get people's personal phone numbers and text them. I really like communication by text. I think it's a lot more personal. I think a lot of my friends think it's more personal too, and I think it helps transform relationships more from a business relationship to a personal relationship. Sometimes it starts business and it becomes more personal. I'll have a client, it's all business, then we start texting and the matter's over, and all of a sudden we become personal friends and we text all the time about who knows what. So I would try and make those business or law school relationships and try and turn those into personal relationships. And it's very important to expand that network. And you'll find jobs that way. You'll find clients that way. And it's a good way to expand your practice by just focusing on that.
Chelsea?
Great. I would say, so this might not sound concrete at first, but you really need to understand what it is that you want to accomplish, what your objectives are. And I'm not saying that you have to know exactly what practice area or type of law you want to practice, but you need to know why. You need to be able to understand what it is that you want to achieve, why it is you want to achieve that, and you need to know yourself. I can tell you, as someone who interviews young attorneys and goes through the OCI process, I'm looking for authenticity. If you are someone who knows yourself and you're able to articulate why you want to do this type of law and be able to connect that in some way to you that is personal, that I can't stress enough how important that is and how those candidates really shine. So take the time to write down, okay, these are my values, these are my 5 key strengths, to figure that out and to really know yourself, because I think that will help you not only in interviews, but also in figuring out what path or what opportunities are the right fit for you, and to be able to answer the why.
Awesome. Christian?
So I guess my advice it's going to be probably really basic, but for those of you who are looking for a job or are looking for an internship, look for all of the job search engines that are working. There's the Indeed, USA Jobs, the Texas Workforce Commission. If you're wanting to be a prosecutor, they have their own job bank, and sometimes that's not even going to be in anywhere that in some of the other websites like Work in Texas or USA Jobs. I've heard of people using Craigslist to find work. The Texas Bar Journal has classified advertising, and the Dallas Bar Association has a career center. So those would be options that you would have in addition to whatever your career services office has for your law school. And so I would make a list of all those places and make a list of everywhere that you've applied, and follow up with those people that you've applied with, and be open and be flexible. And it may not be, your first job may not be in Dallas, but if you're like me, you'll find a way back anyways. So with that, I will leave it to Bill.
Bill,
To close us off.
here for us.
A couple of quick points that are all, as much as I can be, concrete. I will give you one anecdote. When I was a first year looking for a summer job, not being from Texas, having no lawyers in my family, and being new to the entirety of what was happening there, I received 103 rejection letters for summer clerkships from 101 firms or offices of firms. Yeah, that's right. One firm sent me 3 rejection letters. Yeah, crazy, I know. And ironically enough, in the 5 years that we've had that firm, had our own firm that we started 5 years ago, 5 of those bigger firms that rejected us have come to ask if we would open an office for them in Dallas or merge with them here in town. So you never know where things are going to go. Don't let those rejections now be the thing that any kind of rejection you get now be the thing that defines who you are. One of the big things I would say is concrete advice is figure out what your habits are that take you in the direction of where you're trying to go. That does mean you have to do what Chelsea said, which is figure out where you want to go, or even generally where you want to go, because otherwise your habits won't get you in the right direction. If you wake up every day and you read an environmental law article or a case opinion, but you really want to do civil rights law, it's probably not going to be that great. I mean, you're still doing work and that's good, but probably not the best work that you could be doing. I recommend reading a book called Atomic Habits. It tells you how you can set that and how you can get moving in the right direction and take these baby steps to set yourself up. And when you do find that job, whether it's a forever job or not, those are the same kind of habits that will make you rise to the top. To leave it on one last concrete thing to address one of the Q&A questions, someone asked, what are the kind of books you should read in your profession? I would recommend look at your bar books. The bar books are actually really good. I still have my bar books and look at them at times, reading O'Connor's. Go to Half Price Books. You can find all kinds of year or 2 or 3 old In a Nutshells or O'Connor's or other things, and you can get concrete experience in your area, or at least knowledge in your area that will set you apart and give you a better idea. And maybe you get to the end of one of those books, like for example, this oil and a gas nutshell, and you go, man, I do not want to do fractional oil interest. I am running away from that. But even that is an answer that helps you get where you want to go. One off the beaten path thing that you can do to get knowledge in an area is sign up for law firm section emails. There are like 10 law firms that do one specific area of class action defense that I do work in. I subscribe to all of them, and then I read them all, and then I type my own update for my clients. But for you as a law student, you can be learning about it. You'll know about it. You'll be able to talk to other people about it. You may be even to do your own contributions on LinkedIn and make little articles and link to it and do your own analysis. Those are all things you can do now. The very last point is this. Once you become a licensed lawyer, which COVID isn't going to stop any of you from doing that. You can do that. The hard part is getting the job, right? You are, through hard work and intelligence and applying yourself, able to stand up against any other attorney, especially if you are putting in those efforts. Don't let that distance or gap tell you that you cannot succeed. And in the same way, the barriers that exist between you and the others in the profession that you want to connect with, maybe one person ignores you, maybe two people ignore you, maybe 10 people ignore you when you reach out to talk to them, but the 11th person becomes your lifetime mentor who helps you get a job and puts you on the right path. The habits that you follow through will get you there. And just like Chelsea said, every one of you can do it. Everyone is you in a position. You made it to this point. You will continue to make it. And we are all excited to have you to be, whether you're already a young lawyer or you're going to be a young lawyer and you're a law student now, we're excited for you to be in our profession.
Great way to end, Bill. And thank you to Bill, Chelsea, Matt, Christy for really a great panel today. This was a presentation hosted by the Dallas Association of Young Lawyers, and I would add that if you were in the Dallas area, you really benefit from having what I will humbly call the best young lawyer organization in the country here in Dallas. It's an organization of around 3,000 young lawyers and law students. We have a committee that's dedicated to law students, the Law Students Assistance Committee, and we do programming to try and assist our members wherever we can. We just launched a program called STEER that is geared towards helping recent graduates and young lawyers that have been impacted by COVID or have concerns that their career will be impacted by COVID, partnering them up with senior attorneys. We have the application that's available for that on our website at DAYL.com. You can also become a member if you're not already a member. I highly encourage you to do it. We are here for you, and we appreciate you joining us today. And thank you to Saba and Sherry Harris, our Executive Director, for planning today's event as well. Thank you all.